I want those muscles, and I want that to be in everybody's mind is, hey, what can I do while I'm waiting to do the big thing?
Welcome into the Get Invested podcast, a podcast about all things real estate and real estate investing, brought to you by Capital Velocity Investments and a part of the Matthias Talks Investing Substack.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Get Invested podcast. As always, we're your hosts, Jordan and Matthias, and we're excited to be here to talk all things investing, real estate, and real estate investing. Today's topic, good one, something that we put out of the newsletter a couple weeks ago. I personally, when I'm talking about this, I'm going to be channeling my parents because, being lazy around the house growing up was not an option, right? So we're talking about we're talking about how to not let your money be lazy. So get up off that couch and do something productive, money. That's my inspiration for this episode. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for vacuuming into the wall of my bedroom if I slept too late for your liking. Appreciate that. Anyways, before we jump into that though, Matthias, what's been up?
Man, we are rounding the final corners of tax season. It has been a particularly challenging year, just with a lot going on, a lot of new things. So not necessarily new properties, but new events with properties, selling, closing out, liquidating, all the different things that we just happen to be in our cycles right now. They all have, very specific tax implications. And right. So we're trying, obviously, when you're passing K1s out to investors, you never want to do passing out incorrect K1s is almost worse than delay. Well, it is worse than delaying, but the some people will immediately go file theirs. And then if you tell them, hey, sorry, we made a mistake, here's a different, oh my gosh, that's a nightmare. So there's a lot of detail. We're going through some crazy, 100-page spreadsheets with just zillions of columns on an Excel and making sure that this matches that. And, all these different, as you can imagine, on the accounting side. So I've been in my CPA's office 3-4 times this week, just impromptu, like, hey, we found something. Let's look this over. Let's talk this over. And it's just easier to go look at the same, sit next to each other and look at it. And
right.
So the team comes in, we gather around the table and hash it out. So, but we are very close on all of them. So as we record this anyway, just about done. It is a taxing time of year.
Oh, hey, watch out, guys. Oh, hey.
Turbo pun.
What you were saying right now about the K1s made me think, last week's episode, in setting investor expectations, talking to investors about what to expect, all those kind of things. K1s, we didn't talk about it at all, but being communicative about when they come out, why they're not delayed, like what's happening. Now, when you described like you going and sitting with Rebecca and the team and all looking at the screen or whatever, I just imagine one of those like really vanilla corporate posters that says like teamwork or whatever. And it's just like all you guys just like bent over looking at the screen. Someone's pointing.
I've got a pencil.
Yeah. If someone's nodding, someone's pointing.
Kind of. If you took a picture, probably would. Although there'd be a lot of Rebecca with her trusty hand calculator, like separate from her computer, just like hammering away on that thing, and me going like a lot of this look because I'm like trying to do math in my head, and it's not nearly as effective.
She's got like the lightning fingers, I'm sure. Yeah, guys. Obviously, he's referring to the wonderful Rebecca Kelly, who was on with us a few episodes ago. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to that one, I would suggest you do so. It was a great conversation, and especially if you haven't filed your taxes yet and you want a little bit more knowledge about how to do it with your K1s. Right. Yeah. Well, something that's a little bit more fun than taxes is that now once this is released, I've already done this, but I'm excited that my dad and I are going to one session of the ACC tournament. That's because it's being held here in Charlotte at the Spectrum Center. I don't think I've been to an ACC tournament game since 2019. Yeah, so it's been a minute. It's probably something I should take more advantage of since it's always in Charlotte/Greensboro. Well, not always, but almost like 2 out of 3 years it's in one of those two. Let's jump into the topic here. Like we said earlier, just talking about the image I had for this when I suggested this to Matthias was a dragon. It was 2 images, a dragon lying on all this gold. In my head, it's always Smaug from The Hobbit and not doing anything with his money. Or the other one is I forget who it was exactly, had those great commercials where like they just show the dollar bills like floating in the pool, like relaxing and not ever doing anything. So those are my two images of, don't let your money be lazy, and don't be a dragon. Don't hoard it. If you've got enough to deploy, essentially. So we're going to jump into kind of that and tie it into a newsletter that we talked about, how to paying attention pays, and just talk through this approach. All right. So Matthias, I guess, take it away.
Yeah. My thought for this doesn't need to be super in depth, but basically just kind of wanted to expand a little bit on that newsletter that wrote a little bit ago. Basically, the main gist that I want to get across, and I try to tell people all the time, is that the more money you have working for you at any given time, the wealthier you're going to be. That's how you build wealth, is putting money to work. Building wealth is not getting more in a paycheck. It's not, and we've talked about this ad nausea too. Just the way that you build actual wealth is having money that's working for you. You don't have to work to produce more money. So at the end of the day, money that's sitting around not doing anything is, in my mind, money that could be deployed. And obviously, there are thresholds you have to get to be, if you have a penny bank, it's very difficult to put that money to work. But you get the gist of it is that the more money you get working, and the more, as time goes on, that produces money. You keep getting the stack of money that is working for you. I think the Dave Ramsey snowball, except the opposite of the debt snowball is the wealth snowball. So that as you get the first snowball rolling, it starts building, and then it sends you more snow, and it keeps going, and now it's a monster.
And also you have multiple snowballs that then will crash into each
exactly.
other, I guess.
Yeah, in that, I mean, theoretically, but I don't
know. This analogy is getting away from us.
Exactly. The whole point is that you want more and more money working for you, and at the end of the day, the more money you have working, the less you have to work yourself in order to create wealth to provide for your family, do whatever you want to do, so on and so forth. So just wanted to have a quick little conversation about how we see maybe a few ways that we think we can put money to work while we're waiting on bigger chunks of money to put to more work. Just some thoughts, and then the philosophy is, again, put it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the famous thing of Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
His distinction: work for money, money work for you.
Yeah. I guess we could start off just to saying that you talk about hoarding. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's impossible to hoard money. Something is happening to that money, whether you are, doesn't matter what you're doing with it. Something is happening to the money, and we of all people as Americans in the last 5 years know that inflation is a nasty dragon, and it can take lots of your coins. It's unpredictable. There's nothing you can do about it as an individual, right? There's so many governmental, economic, and worldwide forces interacting together that cause a huge spike of inflation. That again is, if you have that money sitting in cash, it is worth a lot less 2 years later than it was in 2021 or whatever. So I guess my biggest point is, you may think that it's safe to just sit on cash, but it really is. It's every bit as risk as some of your investments may be, just because there's always a force that's hacking away at it. So at the very least, you need to find a way to beat inflation, or to hedge against inflation, right, at the very least. But again, if you're just hedging, you're sitting still. And we always say time is the biggest factor in investing. So the longer you're sitting at zero, sitting at a stable, not gaining, not losing, that's good. You don't want to be losing, but I mean, take advantage of time in the investing, I guess.
Right. And I want to be clear. My idea for the hoarding, well, first of all, again, like I said, I cannot overstate how much of this was precipitated by the image of Smaug. But what I was really thinking about, though, is the tendency for security, like it's a fundamental human thing. Like, I want to be able to put my hands on it, right? Mm-hmm. I have it. It's mine. I can get to it. I feel safe because it is there. So clearly what we're talking about, guys, is, you have money to pay bills. You have saved some money for, for emergencies. You have all those things. And then beyond that, what kind of actionable steps can you take, small or large? And there's more than one, right? To take that next step. And that's why you're referring to the newsletter, because part of it was, hey, you got to figure out what you're comfortable with. And that may mean you need to learn some stuff and then kind of work towards it. But it would be interesting to compare. I'm not entirely sure what would be the comparison, but like what things, other than just you put your money in like a terrible stock that in the company collapsed or whatever, like what investment instruments actually over like a 5-year plan like were underperformed inflation, I guess is what I mean. Like you lost money in your investment at a bigger rate than you would lose in purchasing power.
As far as standard investment vehicles, very few of them.
Sure, yeah.
Very few of them. I mean, you could have like shorted something, and there'd be some options that you had where you can really lose a lot of money if you just guessed wrong on what the overall market or one particular thing was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just doing a straight investment, I mean, just about any asset that's part of what inflation is, right? An asset is a hard value holder, and the dollar value goes up and down based on inflation, but a bunch of other variables too. But all things being equal, inflation takes the asset value and it takes more dollars to buy that asset now. So your asset shot up in value theoretically, even though it did nothing different other than the dollar got weaker, really is what inflation is. So the purchasing power of your dollar went down. So you had to get it by holding assets instead of dollars. That's kind of the general idea. Most of the time they did better, they outperformed, because that's where everybody ran to, is assets. And in a high inflation environment, the dollar, nobody wants to hold dollars because they're losing value at a rapid rate, more rapid than normal.
Right. And I guess that's another thing that we should clarify. I'm assuming what we're both talking about is you're putting money in the 401k or you're putting money in your retirement account. And this is essentially another vehicle beyond that. And maybe not even, I don't even know if we're discussing necessarily the kinds of investments that you could do with us so much as just
not necessarily.
The idea itself.
And I think this ties so closely with that newsletter that I wrote, just because it's, for instance, let's go to emergency fund, right? Where you want to have a very near cash liquid, where you can a kid has to go to the hospital, whatever might happen. Mm-hmm. You want to have that money ready to go. You don't want to be locking it into a 5-year CD to where you can't get it for 5 years.
Exactly.
Like while that'll be working, it would be making a return for you. But even then, and this is where the education that we kind of harp on is like, hey, there's money market accounts, high yield savings accounts, different types of accounts that you can accomplish the same thing. For instance, my family's emergency fund is in a high yield savings account right now. As inflation was high, those banks needed more dollars to hold on to, and so they were happy. They were, all the interest rates were shooting up, right? So the rates you can get on those are pretty good. So paying attention, understanding, and having the kind of financial savvy to be able to find ways that within whatever these piles of money are, and they're all dedicated towards something important, finding ways to have them work while they're doing that, and like I said, every little bit counts. So the snowball gets bigger. It could either get smaller, get bigger, or stay the same. And all else, we want it to grow bigger. We always want to find ways to grow the snowball. So, and it could be, it may not be like a high yield savings account. You're not gonna get rich off a high yield savings account, but it's effectively free money versus sitting in an account where it's not earning any interest, maybe 3-4%, whatever it might be. That's not nothing. It's, and as your numbers grow bigger over time that we talk about, you get, okay, well, I'm earning 4% here. I'm earning 3.5% here. And these funds, they aren't just sitting in cash getting eaten away by inflation. They're growing, hopefully outpacing inflation by a little bit. And that allows you to focus on, getting the bigger chunks to work for you in some of the investments that will make you wealthy.
Right. I mean, and that's that is a simple, straightforward thing, the high yield savings example that you used, but I don't think that it's I would wonder, I guess is the way to say it, how standard it is for people just because of comfort and it's what, it's what they do. It's easy to do. They just have like a savings account at their bank, right? That's connected to their checking and they set it aside, because they want it. But if you're at a standard institutional bank having a savings account like that connected to your checking, it's not going to be paying you anything. So you have to take that extra step of creating the account, moving the money, knowing that if I need this, it will take a couple of days, maybe whatever. But it's a whole, you got to jump through some hoops to get to that.
And that's really what I'm advocating for, is the one, being aware of what options might fit for whatever this particular type of, this pile of money is, that you need for something, maybe in the future, maybe you want to be ready for it at a moment's notice. But there are ways in the more financial education you kind of give yourself, the more you're going to understand the options that are available to you. And then taking the, like you said, the extra steps of like, hey, yes, I know it's easier to just get on my phone app and click money back and forth over, but for a few more steps, and maybe even not even a couple of days, it really depends. Like, I could be earning money with that same, just a little bit of extra special attention, and you get more money to work for yourself. And again, a high yield savings account for their emergency fund is not going to change anybody's life, but it's those muscles that I like exercising. Hey, I've got $5,000 sitting over here that I haven't decided what I want to do yet. What can I do with that? And the more education you get, you go, hey, well, I'll throw it in a Robinhood, or I'll throw it in a brokerage account and start, and while I'm waiting to figure out, I'm waiting for another bonus to combine it with and go do a bigger, whatever it might be. I want those muscles, and I want that to be in everybody's mind is, hey, what can I do while I'm waiting to do the big thing? Do a few small things, and then the more you do that, the better you get at it. And so it's just second nature. For instance, whenever I get, one of our investment pays good, pays a big, maybe we sold something, whatever, I get a big chunk of cash, and I go, okay, I already know what I'm going to do with this before it even hits my account, because I'm so used to, hey, I'm going to have to, tax purposes aside, I'm going to have to, either reinvest, or I'm going to do this, or what am I going to leave this money? And you can start getting a really, really, really big chunks of money. Then you start worrying about FDIC coverage, anything over, I think it's 250. Yeah. If you got that, we got more cash than 250 sitting around, but theoretically you're at risk of a bank run and losing actual money. So like, just, it builds those muscles and those kind of patterns of behavior that are that's what the wealthy do. That's what the wealthy people do, is that they know what they're going to do with their money as it happens, as it comes to them. They earn it in their job. They kind of have a place to push it off to almost immediately, so that there's never any lazy money sitting around.
Right. And that, it's just, with inflation, it's quite literally like muscles, right? I mean, you're atrophying. Either you're maintaining getting stronger, or you're atrophying. You're just sitting around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I think one of the reasons I like that newsletter, I guess we're talking positively about our own stuff, but one of the things I thought was a good point about, I guess is the way to say it, is the trickle effect of learning, right? First thing, like you said, I love Robinhood. You throw out Robinhood, right? You put some money in there and you buy a very safe stock, right? You just gotta get used to
2 or 3 shares of a very safe stock, right? Because it doesn't have to be,
or you buy,
you don't have to be buying thousands of dollars. Yeah, you know what I mean?
If you have $5,000, to use your $5,000, depending on what you want to buy. I mean, you could buy multiple different companies and just kind of see how it goes, and then just get a feel for all of that. And do the dividend reinvestment, or all those things you can kind of just like I'm saying, you just kind of get to a point where you're comfortable, you can start learning, and then it's like, oh, what is, not advocating you do this, guys, this is just an example. It says trade options, like, what is that? And then you go learn about calls and puts, and there are actually very conservative strategies to use options to make income on the stocks that you own, where you buy an option for something. If it happens, you're okay with it, right? Or if you sell an option and if it happens, you're okay with it. I'll sell a put, which means you promise to buy for this stock at this price. And if it happens, you have the money, you plan, you have the money, okay, I like the stock. I want to buy at this price. If it doesn't happen, then you just made money on the option itself, right? So I don't want to go in the weeds on that, but my point is just, all it started with was, hey, I opened a Robinhood account and put like $100 in, and then went from there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I like. So, I in the newsletter that we keep talking about the curiosity. I've always had the curiosity with investing, and it's more than anything else, it's provided me with that motivation to keep learning more and more and better ways and strategies and types of investment. And what does this mean? What does that mean? That's how it's benefited me. It's not. It's because I keep learning, and as I learn more, I'm able to do more things that make other people's eyes just glass over because they have no idea what I'm talking about. Was like, well, everybody can eventually get there. You just got to be curious enough or motivated enough to keep learning in those little steps, whatever your pace might be, with a Robinhood account or in real estate investing or whatever it might be. You have the ability to keep getting incrementally better, and that makes you more and more effective with each dollar that you get as you gain more knowledge. So your personal rate of return, let's say, of your when you're an 18-year-old, it's probably pretty negative, your personal rate of return, because you probably waste a lot more money than anything else. But maybe in your your late 20s, you start branching over into the positive on every dollar you earn and every dollar you invest. And towards your late 30s, 40s, maybe your personal rate of return on every dollar you make starts to become pretty good because you know how to convert that dollar that you earn into wealth better and better, and start compounding in wiser, more savvy decisions and moves. And I think over the long run, that's the goal, right? Is to get everybody to where they kind of take their own financial future into their own hands, and they can end up living the life of their dreams if they learn enough and are willing to dedicate what it takes, putting that money to work.
Yeah. And that's the kind of, you're tracking like through the age, through the decades, as it were.
Sure.
Just made me think that there's so many different ways that, they're not, you don't just get handed a sheet and say like, hi, here's adulthood. Here's some things you should know. Right. There's so many different ways to manage finances other than money comes into my checking, I pay my bills, and I put some away. Right. There's so many different ways to do that. So many things you can do. I mean, and there's more choices to that than goes in, goes out, the end. And the more of those that you learn, right, the more power you have, honestly. Right. I mean, not just like
I agree,
purchasing or investing, but just in general, you feel like you have more control. I can do more things.
And
the really basic example I always use, speaking of, being a teenager or whatever, and then growing up, is I worked for 3 years right out of college. But, my dad was smart enough to give me a credit card in college, very low. I worked, so I used it to pay for things and paid it off, etc. And then, so, my credit was good. I got a much better one getting out. And then when I went back to grad school, I was in grad school with people who came straight from undergrad, basically. And, all they were doing was, this is fiscally responsible in a way, was I have a debit card.
Yeah.
The end. I got paid. Now I can buy something. And that idea was like, I'm like, no, that's what, they would literally be like, oh, I have to wait till like 2 days from now to go buy groceries because
that's when the paycheck hits.
And, because I had just that tiny bit more sophistication and a good credit card at my disposal, I wasn't necessarily spending any more money than them, but I definitely didn't like have to starve myself for 2 days because I didn't have any way to go get the groceries. Like, that's just a very simple example, but you extrapolate that outward to all kinds of more, more sophisticated things.
I don't think anybody could argue that as you're more financially sophisticated, life gets maybe easier. I don't want to say necessarily better, but definitely easier, right? Like
less friction.
Yeah.
Unless you get yourself in trouble, but
like if you don't have in the instance of credit cards, they're like, well, if your car gets towed, you park in the wrong spot, your car gets towed, you don't have a credit card and you got that debit card and there's not enough to pay your life just got really hard. You know what I mean? You got to figure out how to get enough cash to go get your car out so that you can obviously go back, assuming you're
Well,
going to work
that
or
was
whatever it is. Like life can be difficult. But the more it enables you, gives you more options. I think options is a good word. It gives you more options with how to deal with anything that arises in your life, or to more options to prepare for things that will arise eventually or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean that I honestly I had those very conversations with my friends. And I mean, part of me was like, "You're 25." Some of them were a little like, "We're 22." So yeah, they're just 22. They can't help themselves. But the
They're
ones
going to
that
make
were a
some
little
bad
older,
decisions. You give them a credit card. Yeah.
it was like, yeah, what are you going to do? You have a car. It's not going to just like necessarily work all the time. I remember right when I got down to Louisiana, there was a deluge of biblical proportions. And my alternate, I mean, or maybe my alternator just went out, but I really feel like somehow water got in and it affected it. I mean, I just moved down there, right? Like I'd spent all the money to get down there. I don't even know if we had gotten a paycheck yet, and I needed a new alternator, right? And I needed a tow truck. Actually, the guy did me a solid.
Are notoriously expensive.
This guy was awesome. He actually did me a solid, didn't charge me because he got it started and just followed me to the mechanic down the road that he knew. He was super awesome. But
nice.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't have necessarily $300 in my checking account right there that I could afford, or 500 or whatever it was, to go out right at that very moment. I wasn't being physically irresponsible. I mean, I was poor because I was a grad student on a stipend, but and so what they did, all the people in that scenario where they had not developed their sophistication, especially when I was later in my grad school career, and everybody that I knew was like high 20s or early 30s, and they still were doing the debit. Like they had a problem. They had to call their parents. I'm like, bro, you're too old for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you're delaying that, like I said, time, right? Like, so if you're not sophisticated by the time you're 30, then you're pretty far behind the power curve in terms of, I mean, we're already talking about like retirement at that point. I mean, yeah, it can all be overcome, and you can buckle down later and catch up and everything. But I mean, 20s are for figuring stuff out, in my opinion, and starting turning things towards the positive, to where you're starting to go, to where there's a positive net worth in your near future, right? Like everybody, you've got your student loans or whatever, if you went to college, to pay off and things like that. And that may take a while, but if you're making progress on them, and there is an end in sight to the negative net worth, then that's what your 20s are for. And the only way to do that really is to start actually taking charge of your own future. And learning how.
Yeah. I think the 20s don't even count, right?
Yeah.
So that concept of like, you're not a real person when you're in your 20s, you're just figuring it out. Everyone kind of accepts that for a lot of different facets of life, but financial savvy is not one of them, right? Like if you are acting immature in a lot of ways at 30, people will call you out on it. But if you're not mature, or developed, or sophisticated financially in that way, that's not going to be the thing that, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not the same. Yeah. People aren't looking for that the same way. Or I'm not saying people should judge people. That's not what I'm saying. But
well, I think honestly, it's it becomes like you're going to talk about it less, because you almost everybody, by the time you hit 30, it's going to be more closed in. You may still be less sophisticated, but you're not going to talk about it like you would in your 20s, where you're going, everybody's poor, and you're, hey, I'm eating ramen for the 6th night in a row because I used to pay too much money last weekend or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
and now I can't afford, that kind of thing. But if you're doing that in your 30s, you're doing it quietly. I don't think you're telling everybody, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I think even less drastic than that is, you're being fiscally responsible, but you're still just walking around with, like, I don't know, that original debit card that you got, and you're not
all chewed up.
Nothing,
stuff's rubbed off.
Nothing has changed, except maybe your spending habits have gotten more mature, but nothing else has changed about that. I guess all I'm saying is it's interesting that idea of figuring it out in your 20s is most people buy that. Well, other than people who are in their 20s. Everyone else, once they get when they get in their 30s and beyond, they're like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing then, figuring things out.
Sure.
And that applies to so many things of life that people kind of accept, but we don't really talk about it for financial sophistication, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, like I say, is that, the earlier you achieve some of these levels of education and know-how, like the better your life is going to be faster, right? Like,
Right. And
you know,
I think the other thing is, and I'm stealing this from Trevor Noah. It's not his concept, but he had a great phrasing, which is everything is interesting if you know enough about it. Like if you learned enough about a thing that
Sure.
you understand the nuance, you just start understanding the complexities and nuances, it becomes interesting. So I'm saying that because you jump into one of these things, you may think it's super boring. If you find out enough, you may find out that, oh no, it's actually not. And maybe one thing is, but another thing isn't. So you never know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And but just to, I guess, tie it all back, because I think we're getting ready to end, but to tie it all back is like, I'm not sure you can afford not to.
Right.
Because we're going back to that inflation, and it's chipping away. That dragon is eaten. And so at some point you're going to look at your personal financial situation. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later, and go, hey man, life retiring on Social Security is not going to be great. That's basically poverty, to be honest, depending on your lifetime earnings. But like, really, it's going to be you're going to realize, hey, I'm going to be, there's something I need to do if I want to live a certain way, certain lifestyle for either the rest of my life or in retirement or what have you. I want to be able to have these things, do these things.
Right.
And it's going to be up to you more than anybody else. Taking kind of the earlier, like I always say, the earlier you figure that out, the better off you're going to be, because time is the factor.
Right. And I mean, one of the things I always like that you always say is, yes, investment is a risk, but the status quo might be a greater risk. Mm-hmm. Not doing it is the greater risk. Now, of course, this is all within the couch, and there is the possibility of doing it. But the greater risk is not doing it rather than risking it and maybe even losing some. But it's not like you get one shot, right? This isn't Eminem's not going on stage to rap battle. That's not, we're talking about
spaghetti.
Yeah, exactly. You have more than one chance at this. So all right, to wrap it up here, I'm going to bring it back to Smaug just real quick, because I need to apologize to him, because he actually is not, he's a good hoarder. He is an investor, because all he has is gold and gems, and those just, the value definitely climbs up. So it's not burning away to inflation.
Yeah, gold has had quite a run lately.
Yeah. So if ever he needs to get a little bit more liquid, hopefully somebody out there can take just lots of gold, because it's mountains of it, literally. All right. Anyways, I'm done with the Hobbit. As always, guys, we really appreciate you hanging out and listening to us. Hope you got something out of this. We had fun doing it, I know. We encourage you, as we always do, reach out if you have any questions, comments, thoughts. Do so on the bottom of this on Substack, Spotify, YouTube. Reach out to us at capitalvelocityinvestments.com, and the email, same thing. We'd love to hear from you, and we really appreciate you taking some time to listen to us, and we hope you'll come back next week for another edition of the Get Invested podcast.
Yeah.